And we are back. What's going on, y'all? Today on Brown Enough, we're joined by Vicky Nguyen, journalist of the Today Show and NBC, a storyteller and the author of Boat Baby, a beautiful book. Vicky's story begins with survival as a refugee fleeing Vietnam and unfolds into a life of courage, curiosity, and a deep commitment to truth.
The news can seem very one-sided, or things can seem very one way, and I would just encourage people to remember that they should get their news from a variety of sources. They should talk to people in their church, in the bleachers at the Little League game and at the grocery store, because sometimes what you read is different from the people you meet and the sentiment that you're feeling in your own community.
We talk about migration, family, memory, what it means to carry your past while building something new. This conversation is about resilience, yes, but it's also about joy, lots and lots of joy. Seeing the sun rays through the clouds, finding the beautiful thing today, and the power of telling your story on your own terms. It's a beautiful one. Enjoy.
Can you just start real simple, introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Vicky Nguyen. I am the Chief Consumer Investigative Correspondent and an anchor here at NBC News.
Chief, high name, big title. You also wrote a book.
I did. I'm the author of Boat Baby, and I think that's what's bringing us together, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk with you about my memoir. It really details the journey that my family took from post-war Vietnam to the United States with the help of sponsor families and churches, and it really talks about my journey from literally being a boat baby refugee to network anchor and correspondent in one generation. And I think it speaks to the power of grit and resilience, and also what is possible in this country. And a lot of people are cynical about what's happening in current events right now. And some people say that America has lost its veneer. But I hope that in reading my story, people will be reminded of the true generosity and goodness and what the American spirit really is, and why so many people to this day continue to risk their lives to bring their families here, to raise their children here, because there is a promise of freedom and of agency. And I feel like my life, my parents' life, is living proof of that. And I just want to remind people that even when it seems dark, not to despair, that there is hope, and that, making your corner of the world a better place is still possible here.
Yeah, interesting timing, because there's the darkness and maybe the lack of hope for some people, and the chaos, and so you are under this assumption, belief, practice that kindness prevails.
I really am, because I'm the product of it. I know how many people it took to help my parents along the way, to help me along the way. My parents were the typical refugee immigrant, parents, right? They were very busy. They worked 7 days a week. They had their, first community college classes to improve their English and to just kind of try to get a foothold in this country. And that led to a number of different jobs, from washing dishes at a casino hotel in Reno to running their own food truck to eventually opening a furniture store. But along the way, there were a lot of people that said yes when they could have said no. And there were people who gave them the benefit of the doubt. And there were certainly times that they faced discrimination too. But my parents really, I think, gave me an inherent sense of optimism, an inherent belief in life, and that idea that you can see the glass half full, and you got to look for, the things that are going right and build on those with your work ethic, with the way you treat people. And that idea of fate and karma too. Like, my dad and mom are like big into, you control the things that you can control. And that's how you show up. And that's like how you are with the people that you cross paths with. And then eventually that's coming back to you in some form or fashion. And I know there are lots of different ways to live. I choose that way because it has been time and time again for me proven correct, that when you treat people well, when you go out there with the best of intentions, sure, life is not perfect, life is not fair, but on balance, I think what you put out comes back to you in spades, especially if it's good things.
Yeah, amen. I think my second tattoo is a little circle on my wrist, and it means what you get is what you give.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, I truly, I mean, like, I'm not a huge like worker outer, but it's kind of like that idea, right? When you are doing sports or athletics or whatever, you see that in the physical transformation that people experience. But I absolutely believe that in the spiritual transformation and in the things that aren't quite as tangible that you can't see, like, oh, your muscles, are you building them? But yeah, it is that energy that we put out there. What you get is what you give. I love that.
And how does the journey begin once you're here to be interested in news or correspondence or journalism, all of the above? Yeah.
It's so funny because I was like a lot of Asian kids growing up. News was not on my radar at all. Career in journalism was not something where I knew anybody personally who was doing that. I knew that the careers, that were acceptable were medicine, engineering, business, maybe law, right? Like those were like the typical things. And so I always thought I would pursue something in medicine. At first, I thought veterinarian because I think a lot of kids love animals, and I thought it'd be cool to be an animal doctor. And then it turns out I'm very allergic to cats. So I was like, maybe that's not for me. And then by the time I got to college at the University of San Francisco, I was like a biology major. I thought, okay, physical therapy, I can go into that. At the time, they would publish these like reports, like I think it was like probably the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. Like, here are the fastest growing professions. Physical therapy was one of them back in like 1996 when I graduated from high school. So I was like, okay, physical therapy, maybe with the sports medicine emphasis. I thought it'd be cool to work with teams. Maybe you would get to travel with the sports teams. And then I started doing these internships and I was studying, and it was not the most exciting. And also then I hit organic chemistry, and that class kicked my behind. Like, it was hard. Organic chemistry was very difficult for me. And also at that time, me being a big believer in like the stars lining up and like whatever, I met Tuan Lam, who I know you cherish as a good friend as well. He was at the University of San Francisco. We were both sophomores. We met like in the cafeteria. We're eating our watery pasta. And he's like, oh, I'm a communications major. I'm doing all these internships at the local television stations. And I was like, tell me more. Tell me more. I'm eating my pasta. Like, what? And he was just this charismatic, like friendly, outgoing Chinese Vietnamese guy who was explaining to me how he was pursuing a career in broadcast journalism. And I could just relate to him. And he was so kind and like sort of illuminated a path for me. Like, oh yeah, you could do this too. You just need to change your major and like apply for internships. And so then all of a sudden I was like, wow, like he just opened a door and made a pathway possible in my mind. I knew what television reporters did. I watched the news. I appreciated what journalists did for the local community by like telling us what was going on, helping us be more informed citizens. But I just never imagined like that was something I could do until Tuan made that, like, he was the catalyst for that for me. And then that's when I switched. It was like, okay, OChem is too hard. I still ended up with a bio minor because I had taken so many classes, switched to communication major, and just went all in on television internships.
Cool. I want to go back to this hope thing, or, resilience, glass half full, all the language that can serve it. This was said to me forever ago. We don't see the carpet, we see the underside, we see the stitching, and the stitching doesn't always look beautiful. And only other people can see how beautiful the carpet is from the other side. But behind it, that's us. We're doing the work, we're doing the efforting. We have to make the glass half full or not. If we have the opportunity to write our story down, we get to see the whole picture. We're like, damn, I was so stressed, or I took this so seriously, it didn't really mean that much, or, the stars are aligned in this beautiful way. When you are this, boat baby, you're this young person, and you're the underside, or did you always just see the beauty, or like, what's for the person listening, what's some advice when they're feeling really down, angry, broken? Yeah.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to interview Scott Hamilton recently, the figure skater. He's a commentator now for NBC Sports, and he won the gold medal in men's figure skating in 1984 in Sarajevo. And he's just incredibly inspiring. And he lives his life with this idea that we celebrate the wins. And I loved it so much because he talked about how he's raised his kids this way, which is, you and I are talking today on this podcast. That's a big win. I got up this morning, put my 2 feet on the ground and walked to the train. I got to go to work. Hopefully later today, I'll have some time and I'll get to exercise. But I think it is appreciating what you have in the here and now, because all the big accomplishments are built on the small things that you do, the habits that you develop, the kindnesses that you put out, the people you surround yourself with. And yeah, like I've had definitely a lot of ups in my life, but I've had plenty of downs. I've worked plenty of weekends and nights and holidays and mornings and lived on my own thousands of miles away from my family, and felt lonely and felt like, am I doing well? Like I'm making, $25,000 a year in my first job. Like that's not a lot of money, right? Back in 2000, it wasn't a lot of money for somebody who has a 4-year college degree and is wondering like, what is the light at the end of the tunnel? But I will say that I tried not to allow myself to get overwhelmed with the what ifs and what's next. And I tried to be like, okay, here's my assignment today. This is the project I have today. This is the story I need to write today. How can I do a little bit better today than I did yesterday? And luckily for me, I did grow up in a time before social media, before we were comparing and despairing. So I didn't know any different. I could kind of see, yeah, my peers and my coworkers, because TV is a very visual business. You see who's getting the lead story, you see who's winning the awards. But to the best of my ability, I tried to only focus on like my own little race and being a better me today than I was yesterday. And something Scott mentioned was like, in the history of the world, there have been 100 billion people born to this earth. How many have been you? None. It's just you. It's you. You get this one life. So you can train your brain and focus your energy on making it better and great. And, tell your brain is so neuroplastic. This is something I've learned, that it believes what you tell it. So if you tell it garbage, if you tell it negative things, it definitely believes that. If you tell it positive things, if you tell it, hey, you're going to grow, hey, this too shall pass, hey, you're going to learn something. Hardship is, tough, but there's a lesson in all of it. There's a lesson in failure. So what is the lesson and how do we apply it to ourselves moving forward? We are blessed truly, like, to be on this planet. And I think about that all the time. My mom, who just celebrated her 78th birthday a couple months ago, was like, isn't it great that we have running water?
Oh yeah.
Like, Mom, yes, we have running water. And if you who've lived here in America for the past 47 plus years can still appreciate the fact that we have running water because she grew up in a place where you didn't have running water, come on, then you're celebrating those wins. And so that's what I look for. And that's what I would say when you're in a tough place, when things are dark, look for the one piece of light and get outside, get around other people, because I think human beings we are social animals. We need community. We need to find our people. And you just need that one person. And I think it's really helpful when times are tough to have at least one person you can turn to. And I think that's what's helped me keep going.
Who's your person or your people?
For sure, family first. Like, I think probably being an only child and just like my parents being there for me, and us being a family unit really ingrained in me without them ever saying things explicitly, because Asian parents don't often say things explicitly like, I love you or family is important. They cut up the fruit. They ask you if you're hungry. They make sure your favorite meals are available to you when you come home from a hard day of school or work. They show their love in different ways, but I think family is important. And that person for me initially early on is definitely my husband, who has been my best friend since we met in junior high school. So like, I know that not everybody finds a best friend or a partner or whatever that early in life, but we did. And I cherish that relationship. And now I have 3 daughters and they are my people. And like, I am grateful for them every day. I am proud of them every day. I marvel at them every day. I love like letting myself absorb the awe in the world. And I find it wherever. I find it in a sunrise. I find it in a cup of coffee. I try to find that moment of awe. Like when the sun is shining through, the trees, and you're just like, it's freaking cold in New York and there's 18 inches of snow in my, on my walk to work. But like, you look up and you're like, wow, look at the way that the crystals are shining. It's just little moments like that, that if you pause and allow yourself to recognize them and allow yourself to realize how incredible it is that you're on this planet at this time. I mean, those are the things I think that keep me going.
The great poet and sage Mary Oliver says, "Sometimes I only need to stand wherever I am to be blessed."
Right? It's
Sometimes
these
I
are
only
these are
need to
simple
stand. Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Just stand wherever you are, recognize that. And I don't know. I don't think it's too much actually to recognize the fact that we're breathing on our own, we're able-bodied. Like those are not small things. You know, if you've ever been sick and you know how bad it feels to have the flu or a really bad cold, and all you want to do is get better. So when you are healthy, what are we complaining about? Right? And there's so many people I find inspiration in who are not, who are not healthy, who are going through cancer or chemo or, struggling with some sort of disease or sickness or situation. And they still are able to find the light. So for me, I'm like, I don't know how much to complain about.
The way your mom feels about running water, which I'm always on the running water tip. I think it's incredible that you like twist the knob and you have water. I think about this every time I'm on a road trip. I'm going up to the Bay Area tomorrow, and uh, it is truly miraculous that so much body, sweat, blood, tears, paved literal highways. Like the fact that you can drive across a nation, a land, a place
Truly.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, uh,
The smart people who put those things together. Anytime I've ever taken off in an airplane, I'm like, I cannot believe someone
it is
figured
wild.
this
Yeah,
out to get
yeah.
this huge multi-ton aircraft into the air and then safely land it somewhere else. And
With little
instead,
baby wheels.
right, on little tiny wheels.
Yeah. When do you get the spark to write the book?
I have to say, I didn't know that I had a book in me until I was talking to, my team. Like I had a TV agent at the time, Tracy Wilk Smith, amazing woman. And I'd only been at the network nationally in the news for like a couple years. And she suggested to think about telling my story. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Nobody knows who I am. Like, what are we talking about? But she was like, your family's story is so remarkable. The fact that your parents escaped Vietnam in the cover of darkness, encountered Thai pirates at sea, lived in a refugee camp for 10 months, and then you came to the United States, and now here you are. So when she framed it to me as like your family story, it instantly clicked for me. Like my family story is not just my own, right? Like there are millions of Vietnamese boat people alone, if you want to talk about that exodus from Vietnam after the war. But then you also think about all of the other refugees, right? And people who have left their country because they want a better life for their children. And I was like, I think that if I do write this down, not only will I be able to honor my parents, but hopefully people will be able to read this and see the similarities in their own parents and grandparents' stories. And so I've gotten to hear from people from Lebanon, people who are Greek, people who are Italian, people like of all different nationalities and ethnicities whose parents came to the United States in some form or fashion on their own boats, really. And it's made the world feel smaller to me. And I love that because I love when you can connect with people who you wouldn't normally have a nexus with and that they see themselves in your story because that human connection, that energy that we all exchange is so vital and it is so beautiful. And I'm happy to contribute to anyone's moment where they see themselves and laugh or cry in my own story because it just reminds us why we're all here.
You are an immigrant. You are a child of immigrants, and we live in a time right now where immigration is a topic, maybe
Mhm.
even a vilified identity,
Mhm.
group, subject. You also work in a public media presentation. What is your relationship to that dynamic between your own body and what is being attacked?
I think as a journalist, we are the first witnesses to history. And the only currency we have is our credibility and what the viewer or the reader considers our ability to tell the truth and to report information in a factual way. I think that it's really important to acknowledge that everyone has bias because of their lived experience. I come as a refugee born in another country. I come as a woman. I come as an Asian American. I come as a mother. There are so many things that make up who I am as Vicky Nguyen. So when I am telling stories, I have to make sure that I account for what I bring to the story, and that there are other viewpoints and other ways to look at any situation or story. And are those voices also being depicted in my reporting? And at the end of the day, I trust that the audience can recognize my authenticity, my intention, and what my product. Am I telling them the truth to the best of my ability? Am I giving them the information that I have gathered from multiple sources without my opinion, without trying to like put a thumb on the scale? But it is heartbreaking to watch families get split up. It is difficult when you see people being vilified for the same thing that your own family tried to accomplish by coming to this country. We were very lucky in so many ways that the political climate when, Vietnamese refugees were coming to America was different. Many Americans felt like we got to help these people. The Vietnam War concluded, and we owe it to these refugees who want to start a life in America, to assist them and to make sure that they get off on a fair start. So I know what a beneficiary I was of the sentiment at the time. But I will also say when, Afghan refugees came here, there was that sentiment as well, that people felt like after the war in Afghanistan concluded and many people wanted to come here from Afghanistan because their country was not livable in their view, that there were people who were sponsoring families, that they were getting them into schools, getting them into jobs. And I feel that way, that sentiment still exists. But it's not as prevalent perhaps or as public as it was maybe back in the late 70s and 80s when my family came here. So I look for ways to tell those stories. I look for ways to be of service in my community. But yeah, I think you would be remiss not to acknowledge that the climate is different now, but that it's not all doom and gloom either. Like sometimes, depending on who you're watching and what you're reading, the news can seem very one-sided, or like things can seem very one way. And I would just encourage people to remember that they should get their news from a variety of sources. They should talk to people in their church and in the bleachers at the little league game and at the grocery store, because sometimes what you read is different from the people you meet and the sentiment that you're feeling in your own community. And I encourage people to look for the good in their community and to believe what they're seeing. And if it's not good, that's okay. Acknowledge that too, and take that power and use your voice and consider how you're voting, and what kind of activities you're taking part in your own communities. I think Americans have a good and strong moral compass. I do, by and large. I think people do, right? In general, we know right from wrong. We know how we would want to be treated. We know how we would want someone to treat our own family. And so I think when you let that be your North Star in the way that you interact with people, that's all we can control, right?
I am gonna. It's not selfish, but I'm gonna ask this question. I listen to On the Media a lot. Brooke Gladstone, and she talks about journalism should be they should be the one humans in the world who can just report information without picking or choosing sides. And then you said this thing, we all have biases, which is 100% true. To quote a fellow Vietnamese like Thich Nhat Hanh in Call Me By My True Name says, I'm the little girl on the boat and I'm also the pirate who just raped her. Like I'm so close to being any one thing. I just happen to be born in this set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And I have received a certain amount of love versus another amount of love. And so, but I think personally we have moved away from unbiased journalism just because there are now brands and identities, and so one company has to be this brand. They have this is what they are. They have become that brand, and so you
Sure.
must report in that way. And so what is your relationship to that as a journalist? Like, you represent a company, a brand, and so where Where does journalism go from here? Will there ever be the return to like, I just am here to present information?
Yeah, I mean, I live in that. So that's a very fair and a very important question. And I was on a flight from Houston to Dallas, sitting next to someone who was an Army veteran and also now works for like a different type of corporation. And he's like, I'm unplugged from the news. I don't watch because of the bias, because I don't want to be told what to believe or think. And then he also asked me, like, you know, your company, when you are reporting, did they tell you what to say, or they tell you the angle to take, or they tell you the perspective to take? And as a reporter for NBC News now for 7 years at the network in New York at 30 Rockefeller Plaza, and then prior to that, 11 years at the NBC owned station in the Bay Area. And prior to that, I worked at a Fox owned station in Phoenix, Arizona. Then I worked at an ABC station in Reno before that. And my first job ever was at a Time Warner station in Orlando, Florida. So I've worked across many networks. I've worked in local news and now national news. And I can say truthfully, I have never had a boss or anyone from sales or anybody tell me who to interview, what to say, how to say it, or an angle to take on a story. We do have legal and standards departments. We do have tenets of journalism that we abide by. And I will say, yes, there are networks that have leaned into a conservative view of the news, taking a conservative take on the stories. There are some who've leaned into the, liberal views. And I would say that everyone else, like NBC, ABC, CBS, are trying our darndest to go down the middle. Journalism is meant to hold the powerful accountable. It is meant to give a voice to the voiceless. And I don't have overlords that tell me what to report or how to report it. We do have standards departments that say, hey, listen, unless we've got at least two sources who can tell us and confirm to us that this fact or this thing happened, this incident happened in this way that we're about to say, and we will attribute it to whomever, then we're not going to go with that. We have like people who keep us following what are agreed upon practices across journalism. I think where it gets murky and gray is people are confounding news organizations that are trying to remain centered and trying to report balanced, information with verifiable facts, with cable news outlets that absolutely have developed a brand and an outlet and gained their followers and viewers by going far left or going far right. I've never worked for one of those organizations. MSNBC used to be linked to NBC, but recently spun off as MS Now. So I think part of the reason why the corporate leadership wanted that was so that they could really make it clear to people that when you're tuning into the Today Show or Nightly News with Tom Yamas or NBC News Daily, the show that I anchor, that you are getting news, you are getting facts, you are getting the information you need to make smart decisions when you go to the ballot box, to spend your money wisely, to vote with your dollars as well as, your common sense. So that's always been the journalism I have worked in. I've never worked for an opinion-based program or network. So I understand people have that question, and I understand that people have that skepticism. And I would just encourage people to talk to journalists at the local newspaper, which for the most part, will be a reflection of the community. Listen, if you live in a more liberal community, your newspaper probably might, have people who in their own personal lives vote more liberally. If you live in a community where your newspaper is more conservative, the same thing could be true. But I would say that by and large, I believe that journalists who don't work for a brand that is based on opinion are doing their very best to give you information that is useful to you, that makes you smarter, healthier, wealthier, whatever, but at least isn't coming to you with an intentional bias.
I love it. Thank you. As we start to wrap up, one sort of like any last thoughts for, tell someone why they should read the book, / any questions for me?
Christopher, I love what you do in trying to make sure that different creators and authors are able to have a platform to share their stories, because it's true, we don't have all the representation that makes sense. I have to say, part of the reason I took the job at NBC News and moved my whole family to New York from beautiful California, where you are, is because I know my Vietnamese last name Nguyen is like the Smith of Vietnamese last names. So even if someone looks up one day and sees my last name on the Today Show or Nightly News or NBC News Daily, they go, oh, I can relate to this person. This is someone who might have a shared lived experience like me. And if they're doing this, maybe I could do this. So I knew that no matter what, even if I flamed out after a year, got fired or whatever have you, at least I would have given it my best shot. So I would say, like, anybody who is looking for some inspiration, who's looking for a story about how you overcome and keep going, and some laughs as well, I think Boat Baby is for you. I have thoroughly enjoyed, like, the best part of writing a book, as any author will tell you, is when it's finally out in the world and you get to hear from readers and you get to hear their responses or the moments that connected with them. And that has been so moving for me, from like high school students who've read the book, to Vietnam War veterans who've read the book, to moms just like me. Like, I know my demo, right? So anybody outside of my demo who liked the book, who, born and raised in America, lives in Kentucky, has nobody in their family who was ever touched by, like, the Vietnam War or anything else, any of the circumstances that brought me here. When that person can find a nugget in the book and writes me an email, it's so moving. It makes all the hard work worth it. So I really appreciate that. And Christopher, I would just like to ask you, like, when you are selecting people to feature on your podcast, what are you looking for? What is the kind of messaging that you hope that they will impart for your listeners?
It's a good question. I don't have like a curricula. I think it leans into community, which is what you spoke about earlier. I believe probably everyone I've ever had on here has been sent by, like, a friend or a listener was like, yo, get this person on. And so we'll, like, shoot them a DM, or, like, we'll just email. Or I don't believe anybody is yeah, and I don't look for anything other than, if you have moved someone, you will likely move someone else. If you have moved someone that I sort of respect and like, that's how they come to me. They're like, talk to this person. They're amazing. That's it. What a beautiful sentiment to receive, which you have gotten. From, like,
Absolutely. Tuan is a cherished friend of mine, for sure. Without Tuan, I don't think that I would have ever started on my path in journalism. And the thing that kept me on the path was, as I talk about in the book, I didn't really have a great plan B. Like, I just had to keep going. My family went through lots of, like, financial ups and downs. And so the one thing I didn't know how to do was show up every day at my job. And I look back, and there's obviously, hindsight's 2020. There's nothing I would change about all of the things that we went through, the challenges that we went through as a family, because then I wouldn't be here with you, right? And so I think that, in those tough moments, you have to keep going and think, this will make sense at some point in time. Maybe not right now, maybe not in 2 months, maybe not in a year, but it will, because it is all part of our unique journeys on this planet as our unique selves. And so that's where, looking for that human connection, it helps you piece together the pattern. Like you said, step back and look at the tapestry and understand, oh, okay, that's how it all comes together. When you step back, you see all the stitching, all the hard work that went into it, and then it makes sense. And then you get the full picture. And, to be able to do that, what a blessing.
I worked with a great director, Lori Carlos, and Lori passed away not too long ago. And Lori said, it's not your job to figure it out. It's your job to show up. And then one day when you're leaving the grocery store, it'll hit you. Oh, that's what it all means. And this has been so true so many times. And I think we cause ourselves a lot of suffering trying to figure it all out.
Totally. Show up and bring your best. That's all you can do. And I promise you, because I totally agree with Lori. Like, I promise you it'll make sense at some point. But yeah, that's all we can do. And I know showing up is hard. We, like, it's hard some days. But do the best you can. Do the best. What is it they say? Like, I talked about it in the book. My kids told me this from an elementary school class, like, do your best and forget the rest. And I love it. It's simple and it works. It works whether you're in 3rd grade or whether you're 47 years old. Do your best and forget the rest.
That's the episode. That's the title of the episode. Do your best, forget the rest. I do want to add your book to, we've been putting all these books by brown, black, and indigenous authors in high schools around the country. We've given away over 10,000 books now, and uh, it's exactly what you said. We were just in Colorado, and it was all these multi-language learners, about 250 of them, and they're all immigrants. I mean, we had a girl from Cuba who got here 3 months ago, and like they were all children of immigrants, and so they should all be reading your book. And we would love to add you to the Brown literacy movement and have your book in there. And yeah.
I would love that. Let me know how I can help, because I know the Asian American Foundation invested in quite a few of my books, and they have distributed them to a lot of members, but I feel like they have some. So offline, please tell me how many, where, like, we can send copies, because I'm pretty sure they would be really happy to support your efforts.
Sweet. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, high schools are always reaching out to us all the time,
Yeah.
asking for like things in our catalog, and
Yeah,
uh,
I'd
and they
love to be like able to just make sure that you guys can do that at no cost, because TAF put in that initial investment, and I'm pretty sure they have some copies that they would be happy to share.
sweet. It's very, very cool. Anything else for me, for them, for listeners, anyone?
I just had a question. One thing you and I didn't talk about, but like seems like a big foundation of what you do, is like this idea of identity, and like being brown enough or black enough or Asian enough or whatever the things are. And I wonder for you if is that something you ever struggled with, or were you always very secure in your identity?
Oh no, I mean, I made ridiculous amounts of art and wrote a whole book to understand my body in this world. Uh, I make the case that for your parents and my parents and many people who look like us, there was a black water fountain and a white water fountain, and what did we have to do with our bodies? And that is a real interesting place to be. It is one of privilege. It is one of sort of internal struggle and external struggle. Where did we sit on the bus, right? What fountain do we drink out of? What bathroom did we use? And brownness has been dancing that dance for so long. And then I make the case that blackness has done such a better job than I think most brown communities have ever done at saying, "Come, I will embrace you. Like we are one." And I will speak to Latinidad, but if Mexicans get a TV show, the Puerto Ricans are like, "Where's my TV show?" Right? If there's a Colombian anchor, the Nicaraguans are like, "Where's my anchor?" And you tell me if I'm wrong, but I have also heard this from like, my Asian friends, that they'll be like, if there's a Vietnamese anchor, where's my anchor?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And I
And it
feel like
doesn't have to be this like zero sum game.
and I think this has caused us more suffering and then relief, and power and access, and it's not a zero sum. And so I did struggle with my identity, and I chose the word brown really for this reason, because I don't want to only speak to Latinidadness, and I don't want to only speak on Hispanic Heritage Month,
Yeah.
because if we need a month, it don't matter.
Right.
Like, that's still a problem. And
And
so I
by the way,
would,
you're Latino, I'm Asian year round.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I would love to us be in rooms together, and that's the next level of the identity for me. Is it's not even about sort of Dominican, Colombian, Vietnamese. First, then it's brown. Let's all be in it together. Everyone is under the gaze of whiteness. We're all fighting the same fight. And then it's just about enoughness. Like, what every human being desires is to walk into a room and be enough.
Right.
They all want to be seen and know that they belong, and they are exactly as they are. And that's why in the paperback we have the field guide to enoughness. So it's like the next sort of level of the book. And yeah, so identity is you can't escape it. You can try, but we are our bodies, and we are our bodies in a world that has a set of rules that were not designed for our bodies. Um, and that currently is more evident than it has been in the past. And so,
Mm.
but I also don't, work in Hollywood and media, and that's unfortunate sometimes, because I don't want to be like the Latino. I want to be a dude who just happens to be Latino. Like, our
Yes.
identity shouldn't be the story.
Agree. And I think, John M. Chu has talked about that. He didn't want to be like the Asian director. Like he just wants to be a great director, like Steven Spielberg, his mentor was. And I think I did a thing with Mindy Kaling and she talked about like this generation leading with identity in a lot of ways, like check this box, it's this pronoun, it's this ethnicity and this and that. And she was like, my parents didn't have the luxury of leading with identity. Like walking into a room and being like, I'm Indian American wasn't like going to open a bunch of doors for them. In fact, it was more like stuff that down. Okay, get in here with your work ethic, get in here and like, just outdo everybody else by getting here early or staying late or whatever it was. And so I do think in some ways, I love that we have this conversation about identity. I think it's very important. I also don't think it should be the all-consuming thing because Christopher is so many things in this world, right? And identity is one of them, but like not all of them. And so it's that balance of how do you figure out who you are, how people see you, because people will see you and they have all kinds of thoughts about you the second you walk in. But then can they get past that layer and just get to who Christopher is and like his favorite food and the music he listens to? And oh my God, you also, play this game and sport that I love or whatever it is, because there are so many more things that make up who we are. So it's figuring out how do we embrace our identity, not letting it be a barrier, and not letting it be something that we're like ashamed of, but also maybe not letting it be like the only thing we build around. Because I think that can be harmful too.
But isn't that so human? We love boxes. Like we love to label. I talk about how like when I was a kid, my dad had a label maker and I would label everything. There's something about identifying something that we are just like, we love. I can put this in a box. I can understand it. And this is why I think gender and they is so powerful. Like it is profound in a way we can't even conceive yet, because most humans can't conceive of someone not being one thing.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I get
actually
it.
hard.
Also, I think it's evolutionary, though. There is something to be said about why we want to put everybody in a box or categorize. We want to categorize right away because that's what kept us safe. You need to be able to be a scary wolf, bear. Like you need to be able to categorize right away. But then when it comes to humans and your own lived experience, who is scary to you? Who is safe to you? That's a whole box to open and unpack. So I think that it starts with recognizing it, but then what's behind it, and then trying to overcome it. Because we are programmed to make snap judgments for our own safety and survival. But then we have to get past that quick monkey brain and all those quick judgments and go to the next level. And I think that's where we have to meet people and we have to challenge ourselves.
Yeah, Rebecca Solnit always talks about how much work it takes to remember that you were thousands of years designed to look for the lion in the trees, but you were never taught to look at the trees just for the lion in the tree. And so when you talk about these moments of awe, it's remembering that if you were fortunate enough, because some people are in this survival, like I need to look for the lion.
People every day. We're talking about the Iran war. We're talking about people in the Gaza Strip. We're talking about people in, genocide in Africa. Like I think about those things all the time, probably more than average people do, because it's in the news and it's in the, research that I'm doing and like current events that I'm reading on. It's never lost on me how fortunate we are.
And then seeing that awe because of that, like not seeing the lion, but seeing the tree, seeing the sun rays. I love what you said about, you said, I woke up, I put my 2 feet on the ground, and I tell this story about, I used to teach these storytelling workshops. I got my background in like The Moth, telling true personal stories for performance. And I would teach these storytelling workshops kind of all over the world and between refugees and non-refugees. And I was working and a young woman said, I put 5 minutes on the clock. I give them a free write and it says, tell me what you know for sure. So what I know for sure is, and they have 5 minutes to like spill out their genius. And so in 5 minutes, all this woman wrote was, what I know for sure is that I woke up today. And to this day, it's the most beautiful, profound one, because sometimes that's all we know. And sometimes that's enough. Like I woke up today. That's what I know. That's what I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, redefining what is enough. I think it's hard in this comparison culture that we find ourselves in, especially with social media, where someone else's, life makes you feel like yours is inadequate. And I really, with my daughters too, especially daughters, right? Like body dysmorphia, just like being inundated, and it's happening to boys too, which is like where they're seeing something and such a distorted version of reality, but that's what they're comparing themselves to. So what is enough? And I think that it's really important to remind yourself what is enough.
It's a battle. It's an everyday battle. It's a lot.
Moment to moment sometimes, right?
It's a lot, especially with what you said about social media. We have to keep those blinders on, like stay in
Oh
your
my gosh,
lane.
it's in your hands all day long. So I'm all about like unplugging when you're feeling frazzled, burned out, like things are too much, too overwhelming. I love it, like getting back to what you just said. Like, what do I know is true? I know that I woke up, that I'm alive. Like, I mean, Descartes, right? Like I think, therefore I am. We got that. We got down to the basics.
Mhm.
And I will say, as an American, you live here. You live in a free country based on a lot of principles that many people, like, I mean, the women's soccer team from Iran, 5 of them defected to Australia because they were like, we don't think it's safe for us to go back to our country. So not for 1 second do I take it for granted where we live and what's in our constitution and the beliefs, the American ideology. It's not perfect. I'm not saying this is a perfect country by any stretch, but what we get to work with, there is an abundance.
Yeah, I had an Uber driver on the way to the airport. This was shocking to me. He was from Lebanon. I don't know why it was shocking, but it was shocking. And he had just gotten here 3 years ago, and I was like, "Sorry, dog." I was like, "It seems like you made a wrong choice." In my head, I was like, "You made the wrong choice." And he said, "Man, I would choose this over anything back home any day."
I'm not
Uh,
surprised. I'm not
yeah,
surprised at all. I mean,
yeah,
he chose, but the thing he chose it. Somebody didn't choose it for him.
yeah.
He chose it. And I'm sure he's living with a type of agency that he didn't have and a freedom that he didn't have because Lebanon, man, you've got the situation right now. They are under attack. And they weren't even a part of this in the beginning for the conflict in the Middle East, but now they're there. So I get it. I get why he would rather be here because he can drive an Uber. Now, he has the choice. He has some agency, and that is a lot more than people can say when they are born in a different country, under a different regime, under a different leadership, under a different religion. There are so many things afforded to us that people take for granted in this country.
It's
And I
literally
think,
what he said. He said, like, I hate student loans because of
yeah,
how expensive we make college, but he was like, I can actually go to school here on money I don't have. And I was like, and in my head, I was like, that's bad. But he was like, back home, I can't go to school unless I have the full tuition. There's no loan to let me go to school. And he's like, I get to study here and I get to build. And it was just, yeah, perspective.
perspective. How beautiful is that? I mean, one of my favorite places, one of my favorite things about a free society is the library. I talk about the library every chance I get because I'm like, you get to go to a building, it's air conditioned, it has heat, it's safe, you got free internet, and then there's thousands and thousands and thousands of books that if you live in that little area, you can get and take home with you, and they trust you to bring them back for free. There's nothing that says privileged free society more than a library to me.
Mm.
That you can read about whatever you want. If they don't have it, you can ask them to get it. Like, come on. I mean, don't talk about book bans, right? Like, but for the most part, we have libraries in this country. Like, yeah, the fact that he said you could study on someone else's money, wow. Like, I didn't think about it that way, but absolutely that's true.
Yeah, it's so wild. I'm really grateful for you and your time. Thank you.
I'm so glad we got to meet. Thank you, Christopher. Please stay in touch so that we can figure out, like, so the book is out in paperback right now because I
Yeah.
know Mike Oinker Morgan Radford would love to have a conversation with you. I just am having, and especially with the war right now, with everything that happened with Savannah Guthrie, like the news cycle. And then I feel like I say this like because the news cycle just continues, never kind of slows down. But if you can send me anything that is a news peg, I'm going to keep pitching to have you on, and then also like give me a heads up when you're
Yeah.
coming to New York, because I think in person would be ideal, not a Zoom, to have you in our studio in person to talk about the books that you're giving away, to talk about your book. I think there's something there, whether we have a daily mental health segment. So maybe we do a mental health angle. I mean, I know Hispanic Heritage Month isn't till September, but if you are coming to New York, then like that is a natural nexus for me to be like, we need to have Christopher on. This is why. Here's how it's timely. Because that's the piece that's tough for me. I need to find the timeliness of it all. I'm not worried
Yeah.
about your content.
Yeah, Hispanic Heritage Month seems obvious. Well, I'll be there at the end of the month, just in general, and I'm doing a showing of a new play we're working on at New York Theater Workshop. So
Oh,
one, also if you're just around, come see. We're doing a reading of it.
okay.
Because that'll be in New York for much of 2027. Yeah, so that's a new play of mine based on my next book. So I'll be there end of the month. In general, I'll just send you. Have I sent you the catalog? Because I'd love to add you to it. This
Sure.
way you actually know what you're like
Yeah, yeah.
becoming a part of. So I'll do that, and then we'll stay in touch. And in general, last week of March, if you want to grab a coffee or something, let me know.
Okay, keep me in mind. I think the play will be tough because it's not coming out till 2027.
No, not for the news. Just to come see the reading if you want to just
Oh,
like
got
see
it.
some
Oh, I
theater.
understand. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I will tell you sooner or closer to it because I'm traveling so much, and a lot of my travel comes up like the week-ish before, like, oh, go to Ohio and taste these Wendy's hamburgers. So but thank you for that. And yes, let's definitely stay in touch because my goal is to make sure that we have you as a guest. I think there's so much that you could say that would be inspiring and valuable to our news audience for like a mental health segment or something that has to do with literacy, like all of that. So
Yeah, literacy
make
is
it happen.
important, and I'll send some testimonials of the kids too and the teachers.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Christopher. It was really
Thanks.
nice to finally meet you.
Ciao.
Take care. Bye.
That is our time. I appreciate you as always. Thank you for your hearts and your ears, and I'll see you next week.